Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please join us for this podcast because it's all about the prayer. We're going to get into our first experience with the salat, how we learned how to pray, understanding the importance, and make sure you stick to the end because we're going to talk about different ways to connect to God through the prayer. See you on the backside.
I got something to say,
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam wa al-nabihi wa Muhammadin alihi wa sahbihi najma'een. All praise and thanks belongs to Allah, Lord of the worlds. I send salutations and prayers and peace upon our Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu wa salam, upon the family, his family, and upon all the companions. Ameen. Welcome, my brothers and sisters, to another episode of Conversations.
But the favorite ayat, I think, is what you.
Yes.
Sorry, I digressed there for a moment. But when I first became Muslim, me and a group of brothers went on something called Jamaat, and that's where a group of brothers get together and they leave their masjid or their locale and go visit another masjid. So we went and we drove about an hour, and we stayed in the city of Richmond for that whole weekend. And during that time, Brother Dawood, shout out to Brother Dawood, Uncle Dawood, you know who you are. During that weekend, he really talked about Surah Kafirun, and where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us, you practice your religion and I will practice my religion. And, I can get into the Arabic and break all that down. But the point is just that, to you, your religion, and to me, my religion. Because I was sort of struggling a little bit because I had a family that was all non-Muslim, with the exception of a few of us. Then I had workmates, I had friends that were all non-Muslim. And I'm thinking in my head, are all of you condemned to the hellfire because you're not Muslim and you don't pray? I mean, all these things are running through my mind in my lack of knowledge. And that's just questions that was just swimming through my brain. And I think Brother Dawood could see that and he could sense that. So he spent a reasonable amount of time on that Saturday talking about that particular ayat or that particular surah. And that's when I began to understand, to you, your religion, and to me, mine. If you're Jewish, alhamdulillah, praise be, that's okay. If you're Christian, that's fine. If you're atheist, do what you need to do. To you, your religion, and to me, mine. That doesn't mean that means that I should not condemn you because you're not Muslim. You should not condemn me because I am Muslim. And if I start to say and feel a bunch of negative things about your faith, then it's likely you're going to turn around and do that same thing towards mine. And how am I going to feel towards that? How am I going to feel towards that or about that? So it helped me to take on a calmness and the kindness towards people who follow other traditions. Now, don't get me wrong. I want all my friends, family, and everybody else to be Muslim, to take their shahada and step into the truth. I want that for everybody, but not everybody is going to do it. So it doesn't necessarily mean I need to condemn them. So once I understood that ayat, and once I learned more about the prayer, meaning we start every prayer with Al-Fatiha, and then after that, you can put in whatever surah you want. And once you start to learn what different surahs mean, then you're going to start to pick out, okay, I'm going to do this surah today because I'm thinking about this, or I'm troubled with that, or I find this easy and whatnot. So once I found myself thinking about people of other traditions and of other faiths and whatnot, and how Allah, please give me softness in my heart to where I don't judge them and where they don't judge me, I pull that surah and add that into my prayer. So that was one of the first surahs that I learned that helped me to understand the importance of knowing what a surah means and how practical the Quran is.
So for me, and I know it's quite common, it was Surah Al-Ikhlas, the purity of faith. I know the number. I'm just going to have to guess. 112. Give me
Okay.
I don't know the numbers, but I know the names. So 112. So this chapter is basically teaching us Tawheed, right? coming from a Christian background where you were following the Trinity, and then now you have the oneness of God, and and then it says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, the most compassionate and merciful. And Allah's talking to the prophet, so he says, "Say, O prophet, He is Allah, the one, the indivisible, Allah, the sustainer, needed by all, and needed by all. He has never had offspring, nor was he born, and there is none comparable to him." I mean, so that is, and then of course I learned shortly after that Surah Ikhlas, if you read it, it makes up 1/3 of the meaning of the Quran. So you can read this 4 times, three times, and you've read the whole entire Quran. You've got the whole meaning of the Quran, and it's one short surah. So I was like, wow, this is great. I could, who needs to read the whole Quran? I got all I need right here, right?
The full meaning.
But it's so profound because it teaches us Tawheed, which is the oneness of God, and which is another pillar of our faith. We have to. That's all Muslim. Every Muslim believes in this, the oneness of God. And then he's telling you here in his Quran about his oneness and how he is the one, and there's none like him, and he's the sustainer of all, and everybody, and everything needs him, but he needs none of us. And so it's a beautiful surah with beautiful ayats, and it's just and I think as far as after learning how to recite Fatiha in Arabic, this was pretty easy. This was pretty easy after that,
Yeah.
And it's so short. When you say it in Arabic, it's it's real smooth. Anyway, so so that was good for me. I mean, that was my experience with that surah. And I'm sorry, go on my notes. But your next step in your development, your connection with the prayer, like, so after you learned these short surahs and you learned the movements, what was next for you?
Short swords and the movements. The next step was really sort of peeling that onion back to know the why. Why is it we're doing this, and why is it we're doing that? And it took years for me to get to that point. It wasn't something that I immediately jumped into. It's like, why is it that we stand? Why is it that we bow here? Why is it we're going to sujood or sitting on the floor? How come we're putting our head on the ground? And just understanding those things. And part of that was the tafsir, and I'll bring that in. Once you get comfortable with the prayer, I think the next level, or maybe along with that, is to learn the tafsir, which is basically a volume of books, and there's 3 or 4 different ones out there. I just happen to be into the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, and this is an explanation of why a surah or an ayat was revealed, when it was revealed, and the different lessons that can come out of it. So once I got the prayer down, I just wanted to know a little bit more. Okay, if I'm reading that in Surah Taha, why is it that the Prophet ﷺ is talking about that? Or if I'm looking at Surah Ikhlas or Surah Kafirun or whatnot, I just wanted to know a little bit more about it. Especially once I first learned of the final 4, or the full quls in the Quran, and then learning the 10 surahs. I wanted to be able to pull a surah that dealt with, as I said before, or touched on a little bit, the surah that went along with the mood that I'm in or the thing that I'm questioning. So the best way for me to get there was to actually learn more about that particular surah. And as far as the standing and the physical pieces of the Quran, I think it's something I was reading today in preparation for tonight was very, very interesting. And I'll try to share this, inshallah ta'ala, tonight. But it was talking about the physical parts of the prayer and why we do those particular pieces. And so the qiyam, or the standing, was sort of a mirror of what the day of judgment is going to be like. We're going to be standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're all going to be standing before God, Muslim, non-Muslim. We're going to be standing before God. Then when we bend over and we're bowing over, we're actually looking at our feet. So we're looking at ourselves in this world. We're looking at ourselves in the dunya, and that's what we're making du'as at that particular time. And then when we go into sajda, when we're kneeling on the ground and our head is on the ground, it is the earth from which we come and the earth in which we're going to return. So that's part of the importance of the sajda, let alone the fact that that is the closest to Allah that we're ever going to be. And that is where the dua is answered the most. And it's even been said that once oxygen is going towards your brain, that is one thing that eliminates anxiety and depression. So there's actual physical attributes that go behind the sajda in and of itself. When we're going back in sujood or jalsa, when we're actually sitting on our feet and we're coming up, that is sort of symbolizes, for lack of a better phrase, us coming out of the earth. We're being reborn, right? We're dead, and now from the earth we come, into earth we shall return. So that's sort of like coming out of that earth, coming out of that. And then we stand back up again in our prayer. So what's going to happen after we die? We're going to stand back up again to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're standing up a second time. So if we start, it's those little things that I started to learn that made my prayer mean even more, because every little single thing that we do and every little thing that we say means something. It's not just randomly willy-nilly. It actually means something, but it takes years and time and study and being in the right circles to pick up on those things.
Yeah, that's so true. I was listening to a sister today talking about that. She made that same point, that even she was talking about the Quran in particular. She's like, Allah didn't just throw the words on the page. Each word is significant and it has meaning in the words that He uses and the order in which He uses them. So that's very profound. I know for me, my next stage of development with the prayer was, the imam, my teacher, used to always tell me, you gotta, you're doing your prayer, you gotta do it with the mindset that you're doing it. You can't see Allah, but He sees you, and you do it as if He were looking at you right then and there. And sin, right? And then on top of that, you gotta have kashur, which is concentration. And yes, again today I was listening to a sister, and she was talking about her prayer. She was like, I'm all over the place, because she works hard and she does this. She's a teacher. She does that. She's like, sometimes in my prayer, I'm all over the place. And she's probably been a Muslim longer than I am. She said that's like her. That's her struggle. She says she struggles with having full concentration in her prayer. And I'm sure we all have had times with this. She was just being, open and vulnerable. And it's the same way with me. So I know for me, my prayer is much more meaningful in the morning when and if I'm doing in the morning and I can't get to the masjid, even at home, it's much more because they're all asleep, right? Because I'm the only one. I'm the only one awake.
That total quietness,
which is a beautiful thing. But of course, when I can't get to the masjid for whatever reason, I miss that, and I want to be there in the morning. I want to get up, and even when I'm in the masjid with the brothers, it's so quiet, still so quiet, and because we know we're all there. It's not a large group of us anyway. But so I have most concentration then, and then of course at night as well. Because at night, not all the time, especially during the long days, everybody's gone to bed or whatever, and I'm still the only one awake, and so there's not that many distractions. The TV's not running, everybody's not running around the house,
right?
And of course, so for me. And I have the luxury of this because my master is 4 minutes away, that I can, if it's if it's too chaotic in my house, I just hop in the car and go.
Okay.
And of course I prefer to do it at the masjid because we all know you get more You get a greater reward for doing it in congregation than you do doing by yourself, but you still get rewarded nevertheless. So I know that. So that's my continual struggle now, and that was my struggle then. And so this is just to let you know, brothers and sisters, especially if you're going through this, it's okay. We all go through this all the time. Our faith level, our iman level is up and down, but we need to try to reel ourselves in and find us a place in our homes or at the masjid where we can concentrate and we can be at ease, relax anxiety and do what you need to do. And just a last point, you can read about the ins and outs of the physical movements of prayer. They're so deep, like you said, Brother Rashid. They have meaning. But there are people who wrote papers about how it's an exercise that it's like exercise for your soul and your body as well, and that doing these movements will help you with your physical mobility and all sort of things. So, you know, it's not a burden, even though it may seem like a burden, because there's so much light and so much nur in the prayer and in the actions that we do when we're praying, that is something we should look forward to doing 5 times a day. And I think the more you taste that sweetness of faith and iman and performing the prayer, the more meaningful it will get to you, to the point where it will never be a robotic movement. It'll always be something you look forward to doing and wanting to do, and you'll do it the best you can, and you'll have that connection, which we all want, that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, and the word connection, I think is I think the word connection is kind of key here, because one transition I remember, when we talk about what made the prayer important, is to remember that we are not praying for a reward. We're not asking Allah to reward us or expecting a reward for that prayer. Although, at the end of the day, on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask us about it, as you said, and then next He's going to ask us about our sunnah prayers. But we really want to pray so that we can get connected to God. It's been said in different hadiths that prayer can eliminate you from doing bad deeds, good and the bad, help you do good deeds and stay away from bad deeds. And that comes through that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we're praying 5 times a day, and if we did something inadvertently that a sin that day, let's say, then inshallah ta'ala, we may be reminded that during our prayer, or maybe that prayer is going to help us to eliminate doing something bad, or it may help us to actually do something good. So establishing that connection with God at the end of the day is really, really, really the important part of salat, our 5 daily prayers. And one thing too, this may sound odd, but I remember when I first started to really, really, really get into the prayer, I remember thinking of the United States and thinking about a clock, right? Because on the East Coast, if it's 6 o'clock in the morning and they're praying Fajr, that means it's 3 o'clock in the morning here. So they're done praying Fajr. That's, the sun moves to the middle of the United States. Another group of people are getting up in the middle part of the United States, and the sun is moving a little bit more. And then the people in the western side of the United States are getting up. So if we multiply that across the globe, that means that every day, darn near all day, someone is in prayer or worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if that is not part of a beautiful plan, subhanallah, that's really just something to think about, Allah's wisdom in terms of doing that and having that window of time for the actual prayers. And so again, that's another piece, I guess, that helped draw me into the prayer. Even though I'm not praying, somebody out there in some time zone is knocking out some rakats, inshallah.
Okay, I'm just a little small tangent right now. So before I fully understood it, so I believed that when they said, we all pray at the same time, I thought we literally all played at the same time. So if I'm praying at 3 o'clock here, you're praying at the same time. So we'd all really be playing at the same time. But of course, I didn't really think it through.
Right, right. But but that essentially is almost right though.
Yes, but when I'm playing Fredja, you're paying something else. Or when you're Fredja, I pray Fredja first, because obviously the sun hits me first.
Right,
So
right.
so by the time it hits you, it's almost noon for me. So, but my thing is, I thought in my mind, I thought whatever Fredja time for me, whatever time it is for you, whatever prayer will be at the same time. So whatever, it was just crazy.
But does that mean if it's Fajr for you, 6 a.m., let's just say 6, let's just play with 6 a.m. If it's 6 a.m. in the East Coast, does that mean it's 6 p.m. somewhere else on the globe? So they're praying Asr?
Oh, it could be. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just talking. Yeah.
I just assumed that whatever prayer when the prayer time came in, no matter where you were, it was your prayer time too, and we was all praying at
Right.
the same time, simultaneously around the globe.
Yeah. So everyone's Fajr, everyone's Fajr is at the same time. Just like,
Right,
oh
because
wow.
and of course at that point I didn't even really understand the different names of the prayers. I just knew that I had to get the morning at 5 o'clock, whatever, and then at 12 o'clock, and then what. And if I was praying, everybody was playing, because
Right.
the concept is that we all pray together at the same time,
Right.
which is actually true, but time changes for different people. Whatever. So
Right. Got to open up. Yeah. So
so
what
far I
was the
can
most
understand.
difficult part of the prayer for you? I mean, once you, started to either in the early days or even later or even now, what do you find is the most, let's talk about then, because things change in life. When you first became Muslim, what was the hardest part of the prayer for you?
The hardest part I think was just the prayer itself, just doing the prayer and remembering how many units there were for whatever prayer it was.
How many rakats for each
Yes,
prayer? Okay.
for each prayer, because you have to remember those things.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, looking back now, like I said, I didn't have a real. I was just trying to do it because that's what I had to do.
Hmm.
There was no emotional, no spiritual connection. It was just something I did. So my struggle now is, like I said, is to keep keep it, being mindful, staying mindful in my prayer. Um, you know, I mean, I struggle with trying to add more recitation to my prayer, but that's because I don't know all the Arabic yet. Um, so memorizing more Quran. Um, but it's now, it's, I guess, quote unquote easy, but the hardest part is for sure
Mm.
keeping, being mindful of. I mean, I don't stress my. Okay, let me tell you something. So up until recently, I used to do like wudu 1,000 times a day, because I was I was so concentrating on the things that, and we'll talk about this probably on our next episode. I was so concentrating on trying to maintain wudu for like the whole day, but of course for me it was impossible. But it wasn't until I talked to a couple of people of knowledge, and it was like, you're not supposed to be sitting around, thinking about when the last time you passed gas. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
You're supposed to, if you remember, and you remember, but if you don't, you only punish for it,
Hmm.
because I forgot how it goes. So he says, oh God, doubt doesn't overrule certainty.
Right.
Okay. So if you're certain you made wudu, but you think you may have passed gas, or you think you may have did something to broke your wudu, no, then your wudu's fine. Go pray.
Right. That's the mercy of God.
So I didn't understand that. I didn't understand it. So literally, I would, I'm wet all day, because
Right.
I'm thinking, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, and I gotta pray, and I gotta do the wudu. And so now, like I said, now I don't stress it, because Allah's so merciful. So I'm not sitting here. I'm not sitting here thinking about, did I pass gas 2 hours ago? Yeah, maybe I did, maybe I did. You know,
Hmm.
you know. Um, so that was hard for me. It was hard to constantly thinking about breaking wudu, and then trying to get to the masjid, or getting home or wherever, making my wudu so I can pray again.
Right. Right.
Those are my things. What about yourself?
Yeah. For me, the hardest thing for me, the hardest thing was getting the Arabic. Um, and the words that I'm supposed to say during the prayer. I think that was probably the most difficult thing for me. But alhamdulillah, what my dad did was he took a big piece of butcher paper and actually wrote out what I was supposed to say and put that on the side of my prayer rug. So while I was praying, I was actually reading. So that
Mm,
way I could kind of get used to what I'm supposed to be doing and the physical motions that I was supposed to go through. Because I wasn't always praying with him. Sometimes he wasn't home. But
hmm.
in those situations, I had the butcher paper. Then eventually, I graduated to removing the butcher paper, but had just little cue cards in my hand.
Yes, cue cards. I
Yeah,
use cards.
yeah, cue
So
cards. And then after that, alhamdulillah, I was so fortunate that we had a prayer class at the masjid. So I kind of went through the three stages: the butcher paper, the cards in my hand, to the actual prayer. So if anyone's out there, new Muslim, old Muslim, if you're struggling with memorizing or learning anything, it's perfectly fine to use those tools and devices. But then, we want to do what we can to try to memorize it, and then we do it on our own. But yeah,
absolutely,
that was the
absolutely,
hardest part of the tools that I used.
yeah, absolutely. So I think today, if you take your shahada today, it's much easier than it was 25 years ago because we have these phones and you can have these apps and you have everything you need. You have YouTube, you have all these things you can use, and they're all quite legit to use. Now,
Hmm.
you can't really, for your sunnah prayer, I was told, and if I'm wrong, may Allah forgive me. But doing your sunnah prayer or any of the extra prayers you do, you can actually you're encouraged to, if you're learning, you can open up the app in your phone and read it off your phone. You can read the Arabic off your phone or
Hmm.
transliteration. But in your obligatory prayers, you're supposed to read it for yourself. But Allah knows best. I mean, I think I was in a class not too long ago, and like even when you're learning Surah Al-Fatiha, if you just learn the first two ayats and you're learning, that's enough. Just
That's
just say
enough.
that. That's enough
Yeah.
until you learn. So Allah never punishes us for what we don't know. He never punishes us for what we don't know, but He will punish you for being neglectful, right?
Right.
No,
Or not even trying.
and those are different. Those are way different. So
Yeah.
if you're trying and you're trying and you're making inroads to trying to learning, then Allah's gonna bless you. But if you're being neglectful, then He's gonna punish you, or He's gonna
Right.
remember.
And
So
and like, no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, so even like so He makes it so easy for us, one, with His mercy, and then now we have all all the stuff that's available to you at your hand, at your phone. So there's no excuse. I'm not going to tell you what apps to download. You go on and search for any apps you want to use. And if someone suggested to you, but they have apps for your prayer times. They have apps to teach you how to pray. They have apps to help you learn how to recite Quran. They have tutorials on YouTube you can watch. I think it's best if you can to go and learn one-on-one. But I don't know where you may be. You might live in the mountains. I don't know, whatever, or you might be shy. You can do it all at the comfort of your home.
Yeah, and the apps and the things, the tools that you mentioned do make it a little bit easier. Coming from a position of someone who didn't have those things when I learned how to pray, when I was reading the transliteration or the English version of the Arabic, the transliteration, I was actually mispronouncing a lot of words. I was trying my best. I mean, Allah accept that. But when I was learning and I was just doing my thing, I didn't know. And so I learned how to pronounce certain words incorrectly. But then once I got into a prayer class, that's where Brother Bassem, he had to, may Allah reward him for his patience, because he had to go back and clean up a lot of things that I had learned. So I was mispronouncing a lot of words. And so he went through and cleaned those things up. And I say that to say that's the benefit of the apps today, because you can pick up an app and inshallah ta'ala get the pronunciation correct. There's always things we need to clean up. That's always going to
Absolutely,
exist.
absolutely, absolutely.
Um, but the chances of that are lesser now that we have these apps and these different tools that are out there and YouTube pages and whatnot. So
Yeah, yeah.
alhamdulillah, it can be made easy.
So yeah, it should be easy, but don't be shy to try to learn. And I mean, I would still say, don't, even if you're leading. And I've heard people say stay away from the transliteration because you will learn how to mispronounce words. But I think when you're learning, it's okay because
Hmm.
at some point during your journey, you're gonna have to relearn some stuff, And once you like get into the Arabic, you're gonna be like, oh, I've been saying this wrong my whole entire life. You know what I'm saying? Then you're gonna realize it. But Allah is gonna reward you. First of all, He's gonna reward you for your intention, your effort. You know, everything's about your intention. So if you intend to learn and do good, He's gonna give you the reward for doing that. And if you stick with it, you will see where you went wrong and you'll be able to correct it. So it's not like, you know, so it won't be. I'm not one of those people who says that you have to come out and you have to be doing it perfect the first time out. Because who does
Right.
that, right? Who does that?
Right. And even if you miss a prayer, because I know that happened a lot when I was young Muslim, and sometimes we're going to miss a prayer. It's going to happen. You may not get all five that day, but don't let that be the catalyst to go, well, you know, I'm too bad of a Muslim and I did XYZ yesterday, so I'm not going to come back to the prayer. Either make up that prayer, or even if you can't make up that prayer, just pray from that day moving forward, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reward you through that effort and through that trying. And keep in mind that there's no one on this planet who doesn't sin or doesn't do wrong or doesn't inadvertently forget something, but we still should come back to the prayer. You know, no matter what goes on, no matter what happens, just try to come back and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, and ask him for direction, and try to pray in congregation if you can. And if there's a masjid nearby, and you have an opportunity to go to any of the five daily prayers, if you can attend occasionally in one of the Jumat or one of the community congregational prayers, then definitely do that, because you're going to learn something just by watching other people and being around the Muslims, inshallah.
Absolutely. So I guess the last thing I'll say is that yes, don't be discouraged. You're gonna miss prayers for whatever reason, but don't let the missed prayer become compounded and missing the next prayer, missing the next prayer, and missing the next prayer. No matter what you do, you can always come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask for his forgiveness, because he wants you to ask for his forgiveness. He wants you to repent to him. So wherever you find yourself, if you were praying every day for 5 years and you stopped and you haven't prayed for 20 years, ask for Allah for forgiveness and start praying today, and he will reward you for that. And of course, you know, we all know that it's not about the prayer is important. The prayer is absolutely important, but Allah says himself that we're only going to get into heaven, into Jannah, into paradise by his mercy. It's his mercy that's going to get us in. It's not how many times we prayed, how well we prayed. These are all good things, and he wants us to do, but it's about his mercy. It's about his mercy. It's about his mercy. And so just remember that, and then everything else will fall into place.
Inshallah. And I know in today's in the podcast, we made reference to three different surahs, surah number 112, and 109. So we'll make sure that we add those into the description field, so that people can actually refer to those, and we'll link it to a website so you can click on it. Inshallah ta'ala, it'll take you to those particular verses. And if you have any questions or any comments, definitely make sure that you add those into the comment field that's right below. Make sure that you share, like, and subscribe to the video. And we try to post every Tuesday, and we post shorts throughout the week, which will point back to the long version. And make sure that you say yes to notifications, so that anytime we post something new, you'll get notified of that. And one of our lovely organizations out of New York, called Mass New York Reverts, is having a beautiful fundraiser right now, where they are going to send a convert to Umrah. So it's a fundraising campaign to actually send someone on Umrah, and this is going to be a sadaqah jariyah for you. So it's an ongoing charity. So make sure you click on that and contribute as well. And if you see any organizations such as Embrace that's near you, make sure you log into those as well, because there's definitely a lot of beautiful events and programs that are going on there. So we'll make sure that we add that into the description field as well. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.